Awesome. Well, firstly, welcome. Health is your most valuable commodity. I'll say that again. Health is your most valuable commodity. You only have one, and it is fantastic and very commendable that you're here today to invest in your health. There is one thing you won't ever regret, and that is investing in your health. For you to become a healthier person, to be more active, to be fitter, to be stronger, to be more capable. This is one thing you will never ever regret in your life. If you make one change today, if you change your destination by 1 degree, if you imagine a ship that's sailing in sea and the captain changes the direction of that course by 1 degree, the eventual destination, the outcome, will be vastly different to if that journey was never changed. So if you decide today, tomorrow, in the next few weeks, in the next 55 days, in the next 6 months, to change and improve your life by 1 degree, at least 1 degree, the outcome, the destination will be vastly different. So once again, I commend you for being here. I commend you also for signing up to the 55-day challenge, because this is where changes happen, transformations happen. Cool. My name's Eska, and I'm honoured to be here. I love what I do. It's a huge privilege what I do. I have the ability to help you improve your life. I have the ability to add years to your life and quality of years to your life. And I consider that to be a very privileged position. And today I'd like to talk about nutrition, which is part of the reason why we're here. Some of the habits that you have. We'll also go through understanding your body scan. And if you have any questions along the way, please also feel free to ask. So today is going to be insightful, it's going to be informative, it's also interactive. So as we go, please ask questions, because there is a likely chance that someone else here has the same question. So ask lots of questions. I've got some slides here. The handouts will be sent to you today, I believe. I'll also be using the whiteboard if there are any questions or if I want to demonstrate anything or make anything clearer. Cool, and I hope that I won't take up more than an hour of your time. So that's the goal today for me, to stay on track. All right, so we're here to learn about nutrition for health and performance. Where we're going with this, we're going to talk about macronutrients, what they are, what they do. We're going to talk about hydration. We're also going to talk about factors considering or affecting your body composition. We're going to talk about what body composition actually is. And we're going to talk about mindset, because essentially this is what drives everything that we do. So if we can learn to control those top 2 inches, then the body will naturally follow. Any questions so far? Awesome, cool. All right, so let's talk about macronutrients. So these are the three main nutrients that give us energy. They're essential for our body. We cannot live without them. Carbohydrates, fats, and protein. I'm going to talk about each of them in turn. All of these nutrients we need to have to some degree, depending on how active you are, depending on what your goals are. Carbohydrates, for example, have had a real bad rap in the past. Sugars have had a real bad rap in the past. And I'm going to try and decipher that a little bit for you, make it a little bit more clear as to good carbohydrates, bad carbohydrates, or carbohydrates that we want to avoid, and when. Cool. Same as fats, same as proteins. To start with, carbohydrates. They're essential for our energy. They're essential for our body to move, to think. Our brain needs carbohydrates. And essentially this is the main source of fuel. It's the most readily available fuel, which means that your body will firstly use the carbohydrates when we're moving. Yeah, so they're most readily available. Carbohydrates are stored as glycogen in your body. Essentially you have 2 stores in your liver and in your muscles. When we're active, we use all the glycogen in our muscles. Once that store is empty, then we start tapping into your liver. Yeah, and it takes a long time to get there. So if you imagine if you're running a marathon, right, and you may not have fueled correctly or may not have fueled correctly during that marathon, you may have seen some athletes almost reach the finish line and not be able to walk. Yeah, that's a sign that the glycogen in their muscles have emptied and they're relying on their glycogen in their liver to keeping them forward, to keep them moving. It's not a very nice state to be in. Once the glycogen in the liver is empty, that's it, no more fuel. So that's essentially what we want to, how we want to see it. That's never going to happen with us because there's a food store at every corner, unfortunately, of the street. So never going to happen with us. But what I'm trying to highlight is that it's a source of fuel at medium intensity. So when we're walking, when we're running, when we're training, that essentially is the fuel that we use at that intensity. So carbohydrates we get from grains, so particularly whole grain, rice, breads, pasta, noodles, and root vegetables. And these are the carbohydrates that we want to choose on a regular basis. So we want to avoid basically the white breads, white rice, white noodles. So by adding whole grain, we're adding fibre. And I want to talk a little bit about that, why that's beneficial. You may have heard of fibre being beneficial for your gut health, for digestion, etc. But I'll explain a little bit more about why that's also really essential. So whole grain, grains, rice, pasta, noodles, root vegetables, these are the carbohydrates that we want to choose on a regular basis. We want to avoid the sugars, we want to avoid the sugary drinks, the fizzy drinks, and the white breads, white flour, white breads, etc. All right, fats is also a source of fuel when we're at rest. So whilst we're sitting here, whilst you're sleeping, whilst we're sitting on the couch watching Netflix, all those things, that's a source of fuel that we use, that your body uses. So it's a really low intensity type of fuel. Fats are really essential for your skin, for your hormones, for your nails, and it also keeps us satisfied. So fats, when we eat fats, it's really slow to digest as opposed to carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are really easily digestible. They enter the bloodstream almost instantaneously, and then we can use them. And that's part of the reason why they're so readily available. It's just an instant source of energy. Fats, for example, they take a while to digest. So if you have a meal that's high in fats, it really takes 20 to 30 minutes to digest as opposed to minutes. So 20 to 30 minutes, and it's also it stays in your gut for a long time. So you probably won't feel hungry for very long. You won't feel hungry for a very long time afterwards. So it keeps us satisfied. So good fats, they're really, really essential for your optimal health. And like I said, particularly for your hormones. And hormones like this governs a lot of our behavior. So if we can learn to control our hormones or to keep our hormones in balance, then all our other subsequent behaviors are predictable. Should I put it that way? Yeah, they're easy to control. So nuts, for example, avocado, fish, oils, butters, really good source of good sources of fats. We want to avoid the bad fats. So what we're referring to are fats that are liquid at room temperature. And that's with one exception is avocado, or two exceptions, avocado oil and olive oil. They're also liquid at room temperature. Am I saying that correctly? No, I take that back. It's the fats we want to avoid are hard at room temperature. Yeah, so think about ghee, think about butters, think about the butters particularly that we fry in. So we want to avoid the fats that we fry in. Fried foods, for example, those are the ones we want to avoid. I don't want to get too much into this, but to make it clearer for you, have the nuts, have the avocado, have the good oils, have the fish. They're really, really good sources of fats. So once again, proteins, carrying on to proteins. Proteins are also a source of fuel when your glycogen is low. Which means that if, for example, we're running that marathon, or we're training in the gym, in the morning, like let's say we're doing a boxing training on a Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. and Paige is yelling at you to go harder and harder and harder. We've eaten poorly the night before. We probably didn't get up and have anything to eat in the morning, and then we're trying to listen to Paige and do what she tells us, and it's just not working. Yeah, so your glycogen is quite low at that stage. Remembering that most of your glycogen at this point in time is stored in your muscles. So your muscle glycogen is low. Still want to be active, still want to push yourself. It's a bit of a hard slog. Your body is then going to turn to its muscle mass for energy, for fuel. Yeah. Part of what we do in the gym is we want to get stronger, we want to get fitter, we want to gain muscle mass. And I can hear some of the ladies maybe internally think, oh, I don't want to get too big. I don't want to get too muscly. You actually do. You want to put on muscle mass. And I'll explain to you a little bit shortly why. What we don't want to do is we don't want to tap into our muscle mass for energy. We don't want to get smaller, we want to get bigger. Right? So proteins are a source of fuel when your glycogen is low, which also then means we need to keep refueling the body with the right macronutrients at the right times to make sure that you have enough fuel, not too much, but just enough to keep you going for whatever you're about to do. I'm going to go into that. Okay, proteins, they're essential for your hormone regulation. So similarly to fats, really essential for your hormones. Really essential for your muscle mass, as I alluded to, your brain health, your skin health, and like fats, it also keeps us satisfied. So which is the reason why there's a little bit of white rind around the meats. There's a little bit of skin around your chicken. There's a little bit of fats in your fish that you eat, because fats and proteins, they work really, really well together when in its natural form. So we want to eat lots of natural foods, foods that aren't processed, foods that are as natural as they are in their natural state, if that makes sense. So real fish, real meats, as opposed to chicken nuggets or fish nuggets. We're talking about processed foods, or fats that have been processed, like margarine. Have the butter instead of the margarine. Butter is as close to its natural form as can be for a fat. Anyway, I'm digressing. So proteins help keep us satisfied. So what that means is that, like fats, proteins are slow to digest. Slow to digest, stays in your system, keeps us satisfied, so that 2 hours later you're not going to feel hungry again and end up snacking. Yep. So have the fats, have the proteins, have a little bit of carbs as a whole meal. Proteins we get from chicken, preferably lean chicken, particularly if you're looking to lose body fat. Meats, dairy, fish, and eggs. We can also get proteins from plant sources. So, for example, nuts, legumes, seeds, and beans. Are there any vegetarians in the room? Good, awesome, great. Yep. What I do encourage, though, is to combine your plant proteins with your natural sources of protein. So, for example, if you're going to make a meat dish, add some beans to it. If you're going to make a chicken dish, add some chickpeas to it. Yeah, so firstly, great for the environment, great for nature that we're eating less meats, but also good for you to have different sources of protein, different sources of amino acids in your diet. Has anyone heard of the term amino acids? Yeah, cool. Are we clear on what amino acids are? I find this quite confusing myself. Okay, so amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So not all protein is made alike. There are 26 different amino acids. They all have different functions. This is where it gets really confusing. So in your protein shake, for example, you might have 3 leucine, isoleucine, and valine, I think it's valine, that are found to be really, really essential. Yeah, but those are only 3 of 26. So the other 23 we must get from the diet if you're not eating your protein shakes. So let's presume there's no protein shakes in your diet. We must get all 26 from your diet. Some of them you get from plant proteins, but even for a lot of vegetarians, that's not a whole source of, you're not going to get all your 26 from your plant proteins. You do get them from your meats, you do get from the chicken, you do get from your fish, from eggs. So we must make sure that we get all our 26 amino acids from a wide variety of different proteins for optimal health. Cool. So once again, add your legumes, add your seeds, add your beans to your meat meal to make it more complete. Alrighty, okay, this is just a real simple graphic of how your plate can look. It's not always going to have the same ingredients, but let's say, for example, we have a little bit of protein, should make up about a quarter of your plate. A little bit of carbohydrates should make up a quarter of your plate. Fruit and veg should make up about a half of your plate. Yeah, that's an essential, I guess, a balanced meal. How big each portion is also relative to your size and your goals. So if I were working with, many years ago I worked with the Chiefs rugby teams, I was their nutritionist for 2 years. So some of these boys are 100 kilos, 110, 120 kilos. So their plate is vastly different to mine, I can tell you that. Come on in. So what I recommend, because your hand size is relative to your body size. And your hand you have with you all the time, right? You don't need measurements, you don't need spoons, you don't need a scale. So what I recommend is use your hand as a gauge. For most of us, and I don't think there's any big bodybuilders or endurance athletes amongst us, apart from Yerowan, of course. So for most of us, in terms of our protein, if we just take our hand, our palm, without the fingers and the thickness of your hand, that's roughly how much protein you need with every meal, or most meals. Think about lunch and dinner. Breakfast may be a little bit different, but lunch and dinner generally, thickness of your hand, the size of your hand without the fingers. It's not much. Your carbohydrates are roughly the same. Yep. Another way of looking at it is you make a fist. Yep. So if we look at this much protein, that's a lot of protein. So roughly a little bit less than your fist, roughly a little bit less than your fist for carbohydrates, and 2 of them for your fruit and veg. So if you're eating on a regular basis, if you're having breakfast, lunch, dinner, a couple of snacks, maybe a protein shake after your training, that's enough. We don't need more, we don't need less, but that's pretty good for a whole day. And certainly there are exceptions. You may, on a Sunday, get up a little bit later, have breakfast at 11 as opposed to 7 in the morning or 6 in the morning. You might have 2 big meals on a Sunday as opposed to 3 main meals like you would during the week. So certainly there are exceptions. But generally, size of your hand without the fingers, thickness of your hand for your protein, for your carbohydrates, and twice as much for your fruit and veg, and you're pretty bang on with how much you need. Cool. All right, let's move on. Now we're going into more sport-specific nutrition. So what you need before, during, and after. And I always say that timing really is essential, and this relates to pre-training and post-training. Timing is essential. And this is also different to, it's gender-specific. A lot of new research is coming out in terms of, okay, what do females need? What do males need? And there is a vast difference. Okay, so let's start with females. The goal here is to fuel the body and preserve your muscle mass. Yeah, we don't want to eat into our muscle mass, we want to preserve and preferably also gain muscle mass for your body composition. So the goal is to fuel and preserve. So 30 to 60 minutes before you train, this is when you want to eat 15 grams of protein, maybe some carbohydrates, depending on what you do. So 15 grams of protein if you're only doing a strength training. If you're doing a cardio and or a strength training, then you'd have 15 grams of protein and roughly about 30 grams of carbohydrates. So how much is 15 grams of protein? Any ideas? Yeah, it's not much. Yep, 15 grams of protein is just a little bit less, or a little bit more than a bottle of yogurt, a small bottle of yogurt. Yep. It's 3/4 of a scoop of protein powder. It's not much. 30 grams of carbohydrates. Any ideas? A small banana. Yeah, or 3/4 of a cup of muesli. So it's not much. Something that's easily digestible. So we want to avoid the fats. We want to avoid a lot of fibre, because fats stay in your system for a long time, and fibre makes you want to go for a poo. So that's not what we want during training, right? Cool. So low GI carbs, avoid the fibre, low in fats. We also want some water, because we're going to go train. Maybe some caffeine, because that does stimulate us. So I spoke with a lady at the door, and she's like, "Oh, I'm addicted to caffeine." Oh, you're very happy to hear this one. Cool. Any questions about this?
Most of us do like box fit
Yep.
in the mornings or at night. So in the mornings, what would be
Yep.
30 minutes before?
Yep, perfect. Let me just cover the men, and then I'll come back to that question. Cool. I saw another hand go up. Oh, okay, so awesome. Cool. Right. Cool. Okay, so pre-training for the men, your goal is to fuel. And I'm not saying it to preserve muscle mass, because I don't want to be contradicting myself. But for men, it's a lot easier to gain muscle mass and to preserve muscle mass. So that's not really essential, the goal in your pre-training snack. Your goal in the pre-training snack is to fuel predominantly. Same timing, so 30 minutes to 60 minutes prior, roughly 30 to 50 grams of carbohydrates. And this is part of the difference in terms of what women need and what men need. Men need a little bit more fuel, women need a little bit more protein. Something also that's easily digestible, that's low GI in carbs, low in protein and in fats. Water, caffeine is optional. So, and also I want to include your question in this. Actually, I'm going to skip this one. Cool. So if we, for example, can you guys all see this? Yep. So as an example, your training, we'll use that as the goal in mind. Just forget this first one. So 36 minutes prior. So there it could be a little bit of protein, for the women particularly, so 3/4 of a scoop of protein. It could be a little pot of yogurt. It could be the protein mixed in with a banana, make a smoothie, or it could be that yogurt with some muesli. For men, it could be a muesli bar with a banana, or it could be a little bit of cream rice with a banana, or cream rice with a muesli bar. These are just some examples. Yeah, easily digestible, easy to eat, easy to transport, particularly if you're driving to get to the gym. Especially easy to eat. Does it help answer your question? Cool. Let's go back. Alrighty. Okay, so during training, are there any endurance athletes here? No? Great. I'm counting you out, Rowan. Cool. So during training, if you're training for an hour, then this applies to you. The goal here is to maintain your hydration. We don't want to get dehydrated. So maintaining hydration is the goal. We want to consume or drink enough water to maintain your body weight. So for example, I would get athletes to literally do this, step on the scales before training, step on the scales after training, and record how much they've lost. And going back to my experience with the rugby, with the Chiefs, some of those boys would lose 1.5 kilos, sometimes 2 kilos in one training session. Bearing in mind also the water that they drink. So if they're in deficit by 2 kilos and they've drunk a litre of water, which is equivalent to a kilo, they've actually sweated 3 litres of water. That's a lot. That's a lot, yeah. So anyway, so you want to drink enough water to maintain your body weight. One easy way, and I'll flick through, did I get here we go. So one easy way of checking your own hydration status is to just look at the colour of your urine. If we're looking at the top, this is a little bit clear. It's not totally clear. We don't want to get into a state of that your urine is totally clear, it looks like water. That means that you probably don't have enough salt in your body. So we want a little bit of colour. You're very well hydrated here. Second one down, you're fine. You could probably drink a little bit more water. So it's just, I guess, a sign to drink a little bit more. If we're going to the third one down, drink about half a bottle of water within the hour. And as we go further down, this is pretty somber colours. This means you need to drink a lot of water. Yep. So if our urine on a regular basis is looking like this, you need to also drink or consume electrolytes. And there I mean salt, potassium, magnesium. The downside of drinking a lot of water is that we dilute the ratio of electrolytes to water. So if we get to a state where we're really, really dehydrated and only drink water, the body just can't hold on to it. We need to actually add some salts, add some potassium. So think a sports drink. They've got all those ingredients in the drink, in the water, in the fluid. Cool. Any questions about this? Yes?
Is it kind of a cheap way you can make up an electrolyte to drink to power?
Yeah, absolutely. Easy. Easy, yeah. So the three main ingredients for that are in sports drink. So if we want to do it DIY styles, I would say a litre of water, a pinch of salt, and a little bit of either, what do you call it, like is it Refresh or Vita Drink, or the sugary drinks, Raro, something like that, or even a little bit of syrup. So a tablespoon of syrup added to it. So you've got the sugar, you've got a little bit of flavour, and you've got the salt from just a pinch of salt. And you shouldn't be able to taste the salt. It's just enough to help your body absorb those fluids.
They also have, I don't know whether this is recommended or not, the like Powerade or Gatorade powder,
Yep.
Cracker Jack, which is real cheap.
There we go. Did everyone hear that? Yeah, so you can get the powder, really inexpensive Powerade powder. I get a Musashi. I know I've tried a Hydrolyte recently. Yeah, so these are 4 instances, and we're not necessarily in it now, but let's say it's really hot, it's really humid. In Hamilton and the Waikato especially, it's really, really humid, and there are some days when you just feel like you can't drink enough water, right? So on those days, particularly if you're training or if you're outside for a long time, have the electrolytes, just to help maintain that hydration. Cool, any questions? Cool, let's go back. How are we going for time? 30 minutes, cool. Alrighty, okay, so if, for example, we're training later in the day, so a lunchtime or an afternoon training, ideally we want a pre-training meal about an hour and a half to 2 hours before. So let's say we're training at 5, then this time would be about 3 o'clock. Yeah, so for those people who go about your day, you're working full-time, etc., you have your lunch at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and then go to the gym at 5, but don't have anything in between. Yeah, do have something in between. You actually need 2 snacks or 2 meals. Yeah, so this meal, an hour and a half to 2 hours prior, doesn't have to be huge. It could be a sandwich, 2 slices, some lean protein, maybe some salad, some tomato. It could be quite small, but you do need to fuel your body, because eating only between lunchtime and then after training, so it'll be 6:37 by the time you eat, is too long. It's too long. So we want to have something there. You also want a little pre-training snack. So think about what we just talked about. Banana, maybe some protein for the ladies, cream rice, muesli bar, just something that's easy to eat, 30 grams of carbohydrates, not too much fibre, not too much fats. Then we have training. For most of you, just be water. And here, this is really essential, post-training. We have 2 windows of opportunity. So the first one needs to take place within 10 minutes of finishing. So if your class here goes for 45, 50 minutes, within the hour, before the end of the hour, you will be drinking or eating your post-training snack. Yeah, and that's predominantly carbohydrates. Sorry, I'll say it again. Predominantly proteins and maybe some carbohydrates depending on your body composition goals. Your protein because your body needs to recover. Your protein to replenish regenerate, help to regenerate your muscle mass. So that soreness that you normally experience after training is decreased by having the protein. Your carbohydrates, because we want to refill the glycogen. We want to refill the carbohydrate stores in your muscles and in your liver so that tomorrow you can do it all again. Yeah? So if we fail to have the protein, have the carbohydrates on a regular basis, we start up here, right? We want to go here, but what's happening is that you break yourself in training. Yes, your muscles are going to get sore and you use your glycogen. We do it again the next day. Your muscles are sore and you use your glycogen. And do it again the next day. So you're actually decreasing in your performance and not fueling, not recovering, and you're getting tired, your muscle soreness. More than likely within a week, you're going to get sick because your immune system depresses. So you're more likely to catch some bugs, someone sneezing beside you, you're sitting next to an air conditioning and someone else is sick in the building, and because your immune system is compromised, you're more likely to pick up on all that the viruses and the bacteria around you. And then you get sick. Like, fuck, I'm not going back to the gym. Yeah, I've heard this so many times. So we need to have the protein, we need to have the carbohydrates, we need to drink water just to help you recover. So 10 minutes after your train, have your first training snack, and then within the hour, another meal. So let's say we've trained at 5 p.m, you've got your protein shake afterwards, and then, 7 o'clock? You're sitting down to have your meal. And here we want to think about that plate. So quarter protein, quarter carbohydrates, and half fruit and veg.
I'm just wondering, what in situations I've had, situations like that, other situations I've had where I'm not hungry?
Good question, yeah. So, for instance, the question was, what if you're not hungry after training? Yeah, so my answer there would be to try and eat something, yeah, and even try and drink your calories. So drink your meal. And I'm not saying make a smoothie out of your lasagna. I haven't tried that one before either. But think of, for example, making a smoothie. Think of fresh berries, maybe some yogurt or some milk. You might want to add, I love avocado in my smoothies. Maybe a little bit of protein powder if I haven't already had a protein shake. So you're able to drink your meal as opposed to letting your body degenerate and not allow it to recover. Does that help? Awesome. All right, okay, so another example. So let's say we're here at 6 a.m. Paige is going to be yelling at you, you know it, man, that's going to be sore. So pre-training snack, 30 minutes to 60 minutes prior. Yep, once again, for the ladies, a little bit of protein, for the men, a little bit of carbohydrates. It doesn't have to be much. And this is where protein shakes are just really, really easy and convenient. We don't want to rely on them 7 days a week, but we do want to use them in the right ways. So think pre-training, think post-training. A little bit of protein with some water, maybe a small banana. Boom, you've got your pre-training snack. Definitely have some water. For the men, you've also got the option of having the cream rice or a muesli bar. These are just some examples. Training, you were just drinking water, and then after training, once again, 2 windows of opportunity. 0 to 10 minutes after, you have your protein, and then within the hour, you have your mixed meal. So whether that's breakfast with some muesli, with some yogurt or milk, some fruit, maybe some fruit juice, if you're that way inclined. It could be some eggs, poached, fried, scrambled, however you want them, with some toast, and maybe some avocado for some good fats, maybe some hummus for some good fats, maybe a piece of fruit as well. Any questions about this?
With fruit, can you just eat as much fruit as you like, or do you have to limit fruit?
Yeah, good question. So whether or not you can eat as much fruit as you like, I definitely understand the question. The recommendation really is to eat sort of max 3 pieces of fruit a day. Yeah, and it's not necessarily that fruit is bad, because I don't want to, fruit isn't bad. Fruit is fantastic for you. However, we don't want to eat that much fruit at the expense of other foods, because I think if you are having 10 pieces of fruit a day, you probably more than likely will not eat other carbohydrates, for example, or you might not have enough protein, because we can't eat this much. Our stomach's only quite small. So if let's say our volume, our max volume is this, and we consume half of it in fruit, it doesn't leave much variation for other things. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yep. Cool. So it's all about balance. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, a lot of fun. And that's the magic, and it's in the fun. All right, so early morning training session. Let's say we're training at 9, just as a different time. So unless you get up, let's say at 6 o'clock and have breakfast there, which is possible, totally possible. If you're not an early morning person, you still want to have that pre-training snack. If you are an early morning person, I'd say have the breakfast an hour and a half to 2 hours prior. Maybe a snack, depending on how much you've done in that day, how active you are. Training, you've got water. And then once again, your post-training snack and your post-training meal, always, they're non-negotiables. They're non-negotiables. Yeah, because these two are going to make the difference, if not all three, pre-training, post-training, post-training, they're going to make the biggest difference with your body composition. Cool. All right, I'm going to skip this example. It's in your slides, but the same idea. All right, okay, so fluids and hydration. We need to stay hydrated for our bodies to function, for our muscles to function optimally, for our brains to function. And more than likely you will have noticed that on days where you may not have drunk enough water, that you find it hard to concentrate, you make mistakes, your mouth becomes dry, your fine motor skills are affected. Yeah, so we want to make sure that we stay hydrated at all times. We also want to just be aware of how much sugar is in our drinks. So fizzy drinks, for example, really, really high in sugar, really high in sugar. If you look on the label, I don't have an example with me, if you look on the label, and from memory, it's over 15, if not 20 grams of sugar per 100. So, this is where it gets. I used to do this example where I had a row of different drinks. 5 grams is 1 teaspoon, right? So in 100 mils, which is not much, there are 4 teaspoons of sugar in a fizzy drink. Once you start putting that together, people are like, wow, that's a lot. So if you imagine in your mind's eye, orange juice is a bit of a culprit. So we want to drink orange juice, fantastic for vitamin C, fantastic for immune system, but we want to make sure we're not drinking too much fruit juice, orange juice on a regular basis. It's roughly about 6 teaspoons per 100, so it's a lot of sugar. So just be aware that Powerade, vitamin waters, your fruit juice, whilst they're healthy, at the right times, at the right ratios, the right volumes, they're not for an everyday, so use them at the right times, because we want to avoid too much sugar in the diet. We've covered this one already. Okay, so stay hydrated, and this is ideally, these 2 top ones is really the range that you want to stay in.
Will those brands now have those sugar-free versions?
Yeah.
Are those good or not good?
Yeah, good question. There are a lot of drinks with sugar-free labels on them. The downside is that what we're discovering now is that a lot of the preservatives and some of the sugars, the natural sugars, they're not digested or processed by the body. So they stay lingering for a very, very, very long time. So you imagine just sugar, right? Sugar, we consume it, it gets digested, it enters the bloodstream. If you're active, it gets used, boom, no problem, there is no residue. But what we're finding now is with a lot of the preservatives, the G numbers, the stevia might be the only difference because it's a natural sugar. A lot of the artificial sweeteners, they just stay lingering for a very long time. So then my question is, what effect does that have on our overall health? We see also, and I'm not saying this is purely hypothetical from my perspective and my experience, but we see a lot more allergies, for example. There's a lot more people who are choosing to eat gluten-free. A lot more people who are allergic to so many more things. You know, they react quicker. What is that a cause of? Is it because of what we've eaten? Is it because of what's in our foods, the hormones in our foods, the preservatives in our foods? If we go back to eating as natural as possible, can those symptoms be reversed? Now, there's questions I pose. So I certainly think if there's stuff in your system and your body lingering that shouldn't really be there, that's going to have an effect. Every cause has an effect, right? So just bear that in mind. It's not, yeah. Pros and cons. All right, okay, so just a little bit of FYI. Alcohol is a macronutrient as well. It's not essential, but it does give us energy. So a glass of wine, roughly about 120 calories. A can of beer, 150. A bowl of cider, about 240. Premix, RTDs, how easy are they to drink? So if we compare the calories to, for example, a training session, how much do you guys lose on a regular basis in 1 hour? 300 calories? Yep. What about you, Rowan? 500? Yep. Yep, I'm sort of around roughly about 400 in an hour. So if I relate that to, I love cider. If I drink 2 bottles of cider, I have to train for an hour just for the alcohol and the sugars in the drink. Start to really think, what are my goals? What do I want more? Are there other ways to relax? Those are the things that go through my head. So just a little bit of FYI. Cool. I don't want to spend too much time on this because I'm aware of the time. And like I said, I don't want to take up too much of your Sunday morning. I do want to get to the in-body scan. So this is a couple of calculations. How much protein do we need? Minimum, absolute minimum, is 0.8 grams per kilogram of lean mass. And that's just to maintain. If you're looking to gain some muscle mass, if you're looking to lose body fat, we need more in the direction of 1.7 to even 2 grams per kilogram of body weight of lean mass per day. And this is where the regularity of your meals becomes really important. So if we look at breakfast, lunch, dinner, maybe 1 or 2 extra snacks, definitely those 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, need to have protein. They need to have dairy, eggs, fish, chicken, some kind of meats at all those main meals.
Sorry, I had a question earlier that I forgot it, now I remember. The Apple Watch, when you go back to those calories that you...
Yes.
How accurate is that?
I actually, personally, I haven't had much experience with the Apple Watch. I have a smartwatch. It's not an Apple though. I think they're pretty accurate. Personally, I think they're pretty accurate. As long as the details that you enter are also accurate for your personal, you wear it on a regular basis. I think they're pretty accurate. Yeah, but like I said, I haven't had much experience with your watch, so yeah. Going back to protein, main meals. I've lost my train of thought. That's okay. Any questions about the protein? Yep.
So, is there anything, is it good or bad to have, like big steak?
Yep, I know what you mean. Yeah, so if we think about what our body needs, yeah, then it's, like I said, it's, yeah, and I know life takes over sometimes. You could give yourself the exception of having your whole hand in stack and the depth of your hand. Yeah, but that, you know, if you eat more, your body doesn't necessarily need more, and it can't necessarily use more. So there's a maximum that your body can digest and process at any one stage, and it's roughly about 20 to 40 grams of protein. Your body, when we eat more than that, it'll just store it as excess body fat. Yeah. So it's about little bits often, or just enough often. That's really what it comes down to. And certainly there are exceptions. Yeah, so hey, you're at a barbecue with your mates, you're celebrating X, Y, and Z, and certainly there are exceptions. And this is where, and you will have heard this, the 80-20 rule applies. So if you eat well, you move well, you make good choices for yourself and your health 80% of the time, enjoy the barbecue, have a drink, laugh, you know, enjoy the popcorn that Rowan didn't provide for us today. But 20% of the time you can enjoy, and life should also be about enjoying 20% of the time, give or take, as long as 80% of the time you're also looking after your health. You're eating well, you're drinking well, you're sleeping well, you're moving well. If you do that, that's great balance, and you'll feel fantastic. So does that help answer your question?
Yeah, so it's still okay. You're talking about that fist size.
Yes.
In one sitting sort of.
Yep. Yeah. And bear in mind, if you eat more, your body's just going to store it. Yeah. There was another question.
That kind of answered my question. I was like, what if you go over your expected protein intake
Yeah.
for the day? So
Yeah.
we'll just store it as body fat?
As body fat. Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah. Because remember too that proteins, carbohydrates, fats, they're all energy, right? So if you eat more than your body needs at that point in time, or what it's going to use, that's energy has got to go somewhere.
Could you go for like a walk after you've had dinner?
Yep.
That kind of like, if you had your bigger steak, you could then go for a walk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really good point too, is that going for a walk, it has multiple benefits. It's going to help burn the calories, the excess calories that you may not use. It's also going to help with your digestion. So healthy digestion, healthy poos, fantastic. You're a healthy person. It's also going to stabilize your blood sugar levels. So let's say you have eaten a little bit too much carbohydrates, or that bread, that garlic bread, oh, that was so good with that barbecue. So your blood sugar levels have spiked. So you go for a walk, you do some kind of exercise, and your blood sugar levels will come back down. Because that's a form of movement, right? It's a form of physical activity. It's medium intensity. You're going to use those carbohydrates for fuel. It's going to stabilize your blood glucose levels. And stable blood glucose levels is going to prevent diabetes, because elevated, spiked blood glucose levels leads to diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And we don't want that. We want to avoid that as much as possible, because there are huge health complications associated with that. So definitely walking after a meal is a fantastic tip. Thanks for bringing that up. Cool.
Sorry.
That's all right.
You would recommend about 20 grams of protein per meal? Or?
Yep, roughly 20 to 30 grams, yeah.
Based off your...
Yes, yep, 20 to 30 grams. Perfect. Cool. All right, so just quickly, let's say, this is just an example. So, for example, we weigh 100 kilos, 30% body fat, which means that we need, of which, so 70 kilograms of lean mass at 30% body fat. This is how much protein we'd need, roughly about 120 grams, let's say, for ease, 120 grams of protein. You divide that by 3 meals, 3 main meals, it's 30 grams per main meal, plus 25 grams, plus 20 grams in your protein shake. It doesn't have to be much. If we are 70 kilos and 15% body fat, which makes 60 grams of lean mass, we need roughly about 100 grams of protein. You divide that by 3 main meals, 34 grams per meal, and a protein shake gives you your total. So are you guys using the MyFitnessPal? Yeah, fantastic. Definitely recommend to understand what your meals are made up of. How much protein, how much carbohydrates, how much fats. That awareness is essential to understanding what you're actually eating. You can learn to break it down. Yeah, so I really recommend use the MyFitnessPal, even if it's for 2 weeks. You learn to understand your habits. When are you eating? What does it consist of? What is it made up of? Yeah, so that awareness is gold. All right, just moving on. The in-body scan. So we all had the scan done. Anyone not had the scan done? Tomorrow? Awesome, great, cool. So I don't know how much detail Carl has given you, but I just wanted to touch on this. So see this as, it's almost gold standard in terms of your analysis of what your body's made up of. So it gives you your muscle mass, your skeletal mass, your hydration status, how much water, and fat mass. Yeah. What I like about this is it also differentiates between left and right. Yeah, it also differentiates between upper and lower. So it's a fantastic analysis. It also gives us, like our body composition. So body composition, when we talk about body composition, we talk about the ratio of muscle mass to fat mass. The goal with improving your body composition is more muscle mass, less fat mass. More muscle mass, less fat mass. And we do that by doing strength training, some cardio movements with resistance. So think about boxing, think about boot camp. It's a really good option. You know, you're using your own body mass as the resistance, as opposed to just running, just cycling, just swimming. They're good for your cardio, good for your lungs, but they're not necessarily fantastic for your body composition, for your muscle mass. So if you were to choose anything, choose weight training, choose cardio with own body resistance. Boxing's fantastic because you're hitting a heavy bag. Yeah, so choose things like that. We also have our BMI, which I'm going to go into. Segmental analysis, which is what I meant by left to right, upper versus lower. We have an in-body score, and that's in the top right. So this essentially is an accumulation or a total sum of all the tests or the analyses that are done with regards to your body composition, your fat mass, your muscle mass, your skeletal mass, your water hydration. Yep, so the higher the score, the better. Lastly, it also gives us our visceral fat level. So do we understand what that means? Okay, so your visceral fat is the amount of fats that are surrounding your organs, your internal organs, your essential organs. So think about your heart, think about your liver, think about your pancreas. So all your organs that help you be who you are and help things function, we have, especially if you have a poor lifestyle, you have lots of visceral fats. If you have a good lifestyle, you have less visceral fats. And the more visceral fat that you have, the poorer those organs can function. So it just offers so much more resistance around those organs that they're constricted in terms of how they function. Does that make sense? Yeah, so your visceral fat is a true indication of your actual health status. The less visceral fats you have, the healthier you are. That's what it comes down to. So part of moving more and part of eating better is to decrease the visceral fats. That's how you want to see it. So understanding your scan, their BMI, I think that's roughly about 2/3 of the way down on the right. No, halfway, where is it? Sorry, roughly about halfway on the right. So BMI, you will have normal, under, or slightly over, or over. And underneath, you've got research parameters, fat-free mass, basal metabolic rate, and recommended calorie intake. So your basal metabolic rate, your BMI, is a small snapshot of your of any potential health issues. It doesn't, however, differentiate between muscle mass and fat mass. So it calculates, simply said, it calculates your weight with your height. So if, for example, if I'll take me for example, if I weigh roughly about 67 kilos, I decide to become a power lifter and I need to weigh 75 kilos. Yep, so I'm going to put on 7 or 8 kilos of pure muscle mass. For my height, that would put me in an overweight to obese category. Does that have an indication of my health? Does it mean I'm healthier? No. Yeah, so it doesn't differentiate between muscle mass and fat mass. Okay. On the flip side, I'm 67 kilos. I decide, bugger the gym, I'm never going to go again. I'm going to stop at McDonald's every day. I'm going to stop eating breakfast. I'm just going to eat takeaways for 6 months. And I become 75 kilos. My BMI, similarly, is over the roof. I'm considered overweight, borderline obese. Is that an indication of my health status? Yeah, yeah. So, and once again, it doesn't differentiate between muscle mass and fat mass. It's a number. So your in-body score is a better number to go off. We get a little bit confused with, hey, BMI, it tells us this, tells us that. So I would say the in-body score, if we're going to look at any number, is a better indicator of your health status. Your BMR, so your recommended calorie intake or your basal metabolic rate, are the calories you need to function, simply to breathe, to think. Yeah, doesn't even consider how much movement you do, how much training you do, how much thinking you do. It just is what you need just to function, just to breathe and to think. We want to make sure that the calories you consume are definitely higher than your BMR or your basic or your caloric intake, recommended calorie intake. If you're eating under, and I know a number of people who are eating 1,300 calories, 1,500 calories, and I just think, oh my goodness, your body's starving. Yeah, what's the first thing that's going to go? Muscle mass. Yeah, because your brain needs to function, and that relies on carbohydrates. All that excess muscle mass you have, from an evolutionary perspective, is unnecessary. Yes, it's good for health, but it's not necessary to function. So you're going to eat into your muscle mass. So we need to have at least the amount of calories, if not more, particularly if you're having an active day, than what your recommended calorie intake states. All right, I'm at 10 o'clock. If anyone needs to leave, feel free to get up quietly. I'm just aware of the time. So in terms of improving our body composition, we don't want to get into the idea of, I just want to lose weight. Please understand that you want to improve your body composition. It's a little bit of a different mindset, different approach. So we want to improve the ratio of fat mass to muscle mass or to lean mass. Muscle mass, lean mass are interchangeable. So yes, we want to get into a calorie deficit, roughly about 500 calories a day. Not more, less is fine. If you're sitting on 400 calories, don't stress. 100 calories is probably a little bit too little. But roughly about 500 calories a day. We can do that through the thermal effect of exercise and the thermal effect of food, as well as movement. And we want to focus on having a protein-rich dietary intake. We also want to focus on having fibre in our diets because they use the most amount of energy to digest. Protein and fibre. And this is why Mum always said, eat your veggies. Yeah? Veggies have a great amount of fibre. And vegetables, in relation to other carbohydrates, also have the least amount of calories. So if you want to fill your plate, do it with vegetables. Lots of fibre, lots of vitamins, little calories. So this is, in terms of calorie density, Vegetables have a very low calorie density, are fantastic for you. And lastly, what's really important is consistency. There's no point in getting up on Monday going, right, this week I'm going to nail it. I want to go to the gym, I'm going to go walk in the morning, I'm going to go walk after every meal, I'm going to eat really well. And then Tuesday I go, oh, no, it was too much effort. Never mind. And next week, Monday, you go, right, today's the day. And we're on repeat. So be consistent. And consistency could mean, okay, this week I'm going to have 3 really healthy meals that I cook for myself. And I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week. If that's sustainable, fantastic. And after 2 weeks, you might go, okay, well, I got that. I'm nailing that now, really consistently. Right, I'm going to add a morning walk for 10 minutes or to 20 minutes, whatever the case may be. And I'm going to add a little bit of meal planning on a Sunday. Boom, 2 more habits. You do that for 2 weeks consistently. Boom, nailing it. Right, I'm going to add another gym session. So instead of 3 times a week, you're going to go 4 times a week. And you do all those things consistently, that's sustainable habit. And that's how you build a routine. As opposed to doing 10 new things on a Monday and not being able to do that on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the rest of the week. Yeah, so consistency with whatever you choose, depending on where your starting point is. Consistency with those good habits. That's what's going to make the difference. Cool. So, yeah. Calories, yeah.
What calories is that based off their starting rate?
Yeah.
Is that the rate recommended daily rate, at least 500?
Yeah, good question. So, and this is where it gets a little bit confusing because your calorie intake, so this is where I got a little bit stuck last time as well, explaining this. So what's your calorie intake?
The recommended one?
Yep.
2,385.
Okay, let's say it's, we'll just do it 2,500 just to get an even number. I'm not that good at math, so this is easy for me to calculate. All right, so let's say, for instance, you exercise, yep, and you burn 400. So we're down to 2,100. If you do nothing else, then your ideal day is 2,100 calories. Yep. However, in saying that, if you base your 2,100 calories on fibrous foods, so your whole grains, your vegetables, you have protein in there, because it's not just about the calories, but it's about where those calories come from. Then you're going to also have what we call the thermal effect of food. So you're going to burn more calories from eating those foods, right? So your 400 calories in a day might actually end up being 500 calories. Understand? Yeah. If you, in terms of the exercise you do, if you focus on high intensity, if you focus on resistance exercise, so think about weight training, think about boxing, think about body weight, push-ups, you're pushing your whole body away, pull-ups, you're pulling your whole body to you. So anything with resistance. They also, especially your high intensity, you're going to have what's called an afterburn effect. As opposed to 400 calories on the bike or 400 calories swimming, there's no or very little afterburn effect. Yep, so you're going to reach homeostasis, reach your normal level of burning really quickly. You do in high resistance, high intensity, and your afterburn effect is going to be greater. So instead of just burning 400 calories during that session, your afterburn effect is going to allow for another 100. So then you're at sort of 600 calories. You understand? So you're burning more through having food that burns calories, and you're burning more calories through the type of training that you do. Does that help? Do you think? Is that clear, Rowan?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's basal metabolic rate on the sheet, and then there's the recommended calorie intake.
Yeah.
I think for some people, they are different.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, how would you say weight loss is your goal? What would you recommend people do in week 1 to kind of try and set yourself up X amount of calories and then see what happens over there?
Yeah. Firstly, use the MyFitnessPal app. So you begin to understand where your calories are coming from, how much protein you're having. So start understanding your habits. That's goal number 1. Secondly, what I would recommend is to make it a habit of coming to the gym, if you don't already. If it's already a routine, fantastic. So making a routine of doing this on a regular basis. Yeah, and then I would start looking at, okay, so how many calories are you consuming versus how many calories your BMR allows for. And your BMR, you want to ultimately sit roughly about 500 calories under your BMR. That's your goal in terms of your intake. But just starting with your BMR and reaching that is not going to allow for long-term change, because your long-term change happens with the right nutrition, so understanding your habits first of all, and regular movement. Those 2 things, that's what makes the difference. Yes, it's great to sit 500 calories under, but that's not step 1. This is step 3. You understand what I mean? Yeah?
Do you mean BMR or do you mean the recommended calorie intake?
No BMR, basal metabolic rate, because that's higher, I believe, eh? That's the higher number.
Metabolic rate is 2050 and the recommended calories are 2,600.
Sorry, yes, no, you're right. Yep, calorie intake, yep. Sorry, my bad. Swap those terms around. So 500 calories under your recommended calorie intake. Yes.
Can you train too much?
Yes, absolutely, you can train too much. Yep.
When you are beginning
Yep.
your fitness journey and what have you, creating your habits against the gym, is it 3 times recommended as a commitment to begin with?
Yep. Yep.
Wouldn't come twice a day.
I wouldn't either. Yep, you don't need to. And I mean, 3 times a week is fantastic to start with. And essentially 3 times a week could also mean that on the other days you might just go for a walk, or not just go for a walk, but you might go for a walk, or you might choose to do a little bit of cycling, or you spend an hour in the gardens. So your physical activity doesn't have to be solely at the gym. It could be outside, it could be doing some kind of incidental exercise or incidental activity outside of the gym. That's also movement.
What could training too much negate what you're trying to do?
Yeah, so training too much, unless you're an elite athlete. Yes, no? 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 Okay, yep.
Run marathons, half marathons.
Yeah.
That was 10 years ago.
Sure, yeah. So training twice a day is not necessary at our level. And you can train too much, that means that you don't recover well enough. So training, yes, fantastic, but if we're not recovering, think back to the example I gave before. We start here, our goal is to end up here. If we're training hard, we're either not eating well enough or not recovering, we're doing this. And this is roughly when we get sick. This is when we start hating life. Why do we not get results? Yep. What we want to do is we want to train. Yes, you're going to dip for a bit, but we eat and we recover. And you're going to train, we dip for a bit, we're going to eat and recover. Train, eat and recover. And that's what essentially what we want our journey to look like in order to become better versions of ourselves. We don't want to go downhill. We don't want to not recover and not eat well, or train too much and not recover. Eventually that'll lead to a dip. Does that make sense? Alrighty. Cool. So just lastly, just a reminder, strength training, resistance training, protein-rich dietary intake, fibre, which I haven't put it on the slide, but yes, fibre, that's how we achieve a better body composition. All right. Okay, lastly, this is what I want to finish off with. I'm only 15 minutes over. It's so nice here on a Sunday. So mindsets. Okay, so I firmly believe, and I would encourage you to also, be, do, have. Your belief in yourself determines your behaviour, which then allows you to attain whatever you believe in. 20 years ago, no, it was longer than that actually. 30 years ago was when I started on my martial arts journey. I started in kickboxing, one of the mistakes I made in my life, but never mind, I've turned it around. When I met Rick and when I met Rowan, we're going about 20 years back, and I sat down with Rick and he said to me, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? And I thought, I'd love a Waikato title. And he said to me, you can do better than that. Let's go for a New Zealand title. And I thought, wow, could that be achieved? And slowly, bit by bit, he allowed me to believe, hey, that we can do this. So what happened is I started training. And at the time, it was 3 times a week. And eventually, it was 4 times a week. And then we set up this gym. And I was here 6 days a week, morning, nights, sparring on Saturdays. I was in the pool on Sunday because I was so sore. In that 10-year period, I managed to get 3 New Zealand titles. I went to the World Champs. I went to the Ringside World Champs twice. Went to 2 Oceania Champs. I became 6th in the world, ranked number 6 in the world. From having the belief, started with someone else who put that belief in my mind, which allowed me to change my behaviour in order to attain what I wanted to achieve. If I can do it, you can too. Whatever you believe, it is true. Whatever you believe, it is true. So believe that you can lead a healthy life, that you can feel good, that you can be mobile when you're older and as we age. Believe it for it to be true, which means that your behaviour will change. You will move more, you'll eat better, you'll sleep better. And all those things, those habits, those routines will make sure that you will attain and achieve whatever you believe in, what you want to achieve. The same is also on the flip side. If I believe that I'm going to be really unhealthy, I'm going to be obese, I'm not going to be able to look after myself and wipe my own bum when I'm older, well, I'll probably end up doing all those behaviours that will lead me into that. So both sides are true. Yeah, so I'd encourage you to write down, vision board, envision, imagine, do whatever you need to do to enhance that belief in yourself so that your behaviour will strengthen that belief so that you achieve whatever you want in life. Cool. Okay, so just to finish, guys, the changes that you make, part of this 55-day challenge, is to make improvements to your life. And it is 55 days to start with. This is also months. This is also the rest of 2025. This is also next year. It's the year after that. It's the year after that. The habits that you create now or that you continue to do now will make sure that you lead the rest of your life in a healthy state. Remembering that we're going to age. That's inevitable, right? And I will, without a doubt, I will put money on the fact that you have an image for yourself when you're older, that you're independent, that you have freedom, that you can travel, that you can play with your grandkids if you have them, that you can spend time with family. You can do all those things that we work for, all those joyful things that we actually work for now to achieve when we're older. I bet my bottom dollar that you do not hope that and wish that you're going to end up in hospital, that someone's going to be looking after your health, that you have to pick up medication, and that someone's going to be wiping your ass when you're older, because that's not what we want. So the habits that you create now will make sure that you lead the rest of your life in a healthy state, that you're independent and you have freedom forever until the day you die. And I hope that for you as well. So once again, choose wisely in terms of what you do. Thank you all for coming today. And if you have any questions, please stay and ask. Thank you. Have a great day.